camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Suffocation.
Is it? Oh, right. Okay. Something's happening.
Oh, what's happening?
Fuck.
Are the Tories coming to kill us?
Well, I wouldn't be fucking surprised.
We
mate,
are.
yes.
Allow me to interrupt for 2 seconds. We're live on YouTube, guys. For episode 49 of Thompsin and Other Disappointments. My guests tonight joining me are returning favourites, DavieMoo and Supertanskiii. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
How's
your Wednesday been? It's been a bit of a quiet one, is it? Or
fucking hell.
Yeah, nothing to report apart from the gasping death of democracy. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I very rarely do these sort of emergency podcasts, but today felt to me like it was a real watershed moment. Like we've had this kind of catalogue of fuckery with the Johnson administration for over a year now, right? It started with Cummings Gate with Barnard Castle. It graduated to Matt Hancock. We got through Patterson, and now we're at this fucking Christmas party shit. And it felt like, to me, like this felt even more serious than all of the aforementioned. Like, how did you feel about it, Davey? How did it hit you?
It's just sort of suddenly, like other people, like I don't want to say not the common folk in the way that the Tories would mean it, but like just workaday people that I see that don't care about these things and that don't hear about these things and that talk to me about, the extent of our conversation will be like, oh my God, does he watch that TV show? We'll be like, you're angry about politics, aren't you? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, have you heard? And I'm like, of course I've heard. And so it's just this sort of like, we've said it, to each other a few times, this kind of spiral effect of suddenly people that don't normally care. And it's been creeping and creeping and creeping. And you do your part where you make your videos and you make your tweets and you have the conversations with people. But just suddenly it seems like people are going, you talk about these things. What do you think? And I'm like,
yeah,
sit down, get comfortable, get ready.
Are you like, time to shine?
Yeah, it's like knuckle crack. It's time for me to put some knowledge down on your ass.
yeah, and I think that's what they mean when they refer to this as a cut through, right? Is when it sort of breaches the perimeter of political geeks like you, me, and Tan, and it reaches out and touches people in everyday life. Tan, why do you think this has done that? Why? How has Ant and Dec started talking about this?
Well, I don't know if it has. Like, I still don't know if it has. I think time will tell. I think we'll know in a week whether or not this is pertinent. I think at the moment, I'm not sure. But Ant and Dec, apparently, I don't watch anything that they do, but apparently they've been seeding this throughout the entire of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. They've been gradually doing it. And when I looked them up, they were kind of traditionally Labour voters.
Oh, right.
But I don't know if this is actually cutting through or not yet. And when you were talking about all the people going, oh, well, you talk about this all the time. It's like, well, yeah, welcome to our world then. This is what we actually deal with about 5 times a day, every day for the past 2 years, especially since that fuckwit got into power. So it kind of feels a little bit like this is more of an emotional tug. People are now thinking about all the things that they gave up, all the things that they couldn't do, whilst those fuckers were laughing at us in the House of Commons. They're enraged because they can relate to it personally now. It's hitting them. Yeah. And I knew it would only start to affect people when they'd feel it. And I think they're starting to feel it now. They might not have had empathy for other people in their voting decisions, but now it's actually affecting them. It's cutting through, but I don't know if it is. I'm a cynic,
Yeah. It feels a little bit like we've been down this road with the aforementioned examples I wheeled out 2 or 3 times before, and we got our hopes up and we thought, oh well, this will definitely be the end of him. He's fucking toast. And then somehow the news cycle just gets bored of it, or they fire the editor of the Mail, or however it is that they survive these things. Yeah, and then we all move on. I guess I suppose the point that you touch on there that sort of hits home with me is it's like people don't like feeling stupid, and that's a big thing obviously with the historic Remainer v Brexiter arguments and debates. It's always like, oh, you treat them like they're stupid, or you talk down to them, and so on. But with this, it's so clear that they treat people and look at people with utter contempt, to the extent that they laugh about it, that it's allowed a whole other deluge of voters out there to go like, hang on a second, they think I'm a fucking idiot, you know. And I think that's the difference with this.
And rule breaking. The British public don't like rule breaking, and that's where kind of I think Labour are cutting through with that, like one rule for them, another for the rest of us. It's true though, and it's not just one rule though; it's one law. Like they break the law routinely. I mean, fuck it. The House of Parliament is like, the House of Commons is like full of gack. There's gack everywhere, up to the walls of it. Like there's just like, the way I imagine it in my mind is there's just platters of pure gack everywhere. But and the thing is, not only are they kind of complicit in themselves, and they just cover each other's backs. They've got most of the media. When you look at the reports of who visited over Christmas Downing Street, it was mostly the usual suspects: Tory journalists, Sun journalists, but then they've also got the police on side. So it's like, how do you compete with that?
Yeah.
How do you actually compete with that?
Yeah, there's a big thing across some of the press today that's sort of tapping into this idea that this is something that needs to be smashed. This is a sort of journo-political class that needs to be broken apart. So you've got your BBC political editor, you've got a political editor of The Spectator, and so on and so forth. And all of these people are not just chummy with the people they report about, which you could kind of excuse, right? Because they need to be close to the action. They've got to build up relationships. They've got to find sources and so on. But in some cases, they're married to people and they all go to dinner together. And so then you get in this situation where you're saying, well, hang on a second. Like, if these people are that, BFF, then what would they be willing to hide from us, right?
Well, it runs deeper even than that, though, as well, because when you look at, there's this like blatant installation of biased people in institutions like the BBC. Now, I said this pretty openly in a video a few weeks ago. I was desperate to be a journalist when I was younger. I loved research and I loved doing, like investigative things. I loved getting something together and writing a story and then editing it and putting it out there. I loved doing that. And it took 3-4 meetings with BBC journalists for me to go, nope, not in a million years, because they were not to a man. They were like, yeah, you kind of just need to like shelve your morals, because someone will come along and go, you're writing a story about this and this is the way that you feel about it, and you have to do it because that's how you progress in journalism. And then eventually you get to the stage where you've reached prominence, but that's the base that you've made, so you sell your soul and carry on doing it, or you fade into obscurity. Look at, like, as an example, and I did write this on my blog today, look at people like this core like little group of these weird right-wing pundits like Nigel Farage and Julia Hartley-Brewer and Katie Hopkins and Darren Grimes. They don't believe a lot of stuff that they say, but they know that they have to play to the idiots that do. They have to play to those people that are like, it's them foreigners coming here and stealing our cocaine. Like, so they get into this like this sort of repetitive, like it's like episodes of your favorite sitcom. You know the jokes are going to come. You know the offensive things are going to come. You know the stupid comments are going to come. The dog whistles. They're not really like that. I think that Julia Hartley-Brewer, if I sat her down and said, "Look, I'll give you £700,000 to be like, you know what? I've spoken to some scientists and the vaccine is brilliant," she'd be like, "Yep, perfect. Yeah. I'll mention it on the radio tomorrow." But
like Corbyn and his joke money.
Yeah, this deep seeding of these people into the bedrock of media means that we like, as conspiracy theorists as it sounds, we cannot trust a lot of what is put out in the media because it's spun.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like this again, it sort of goes into this idea, this angle that a lot of the faces that we see, the sort of like the right-wing blue tick brigade, your talk radio types, your Darren Grimes, your Nigel Farages, it's like, are they really that shit people, or are they just truly on the grift? Like, which is it? Am I being super cynical? Do you think that they're that mean-spirited and that selfish, or do you think they're just like, I got to keep this fucking shit churning, pay off my mortgage?
You'd have to be. I mean, either way, they're still putting out the misinformation. They're still putting out the shit. So they're still bad, like what I would consider to be bad people, because their actions have consequences. They impact people, and if they're encouraging people to other groups of people, that has a real time effect on those people. Like whether it's the trans community, whether it's racism, whether it's that has a real impact. So whether they're selling like a concept for money or they believe it, it's irrelevant. The outcome's still the same.
Yeah. If we move on slightly, so clearly last night's video, when it was released, it sort of exploded. I turned off the drama thing that I was watching. I was like, fuck this, I'm throwing on Sky News. Like, this is like this is Christmas for me, right? I was like, here we go, let's go in deep, get on Twitter. And then this morning, in the run up to PMQs, obviously it felt a bit kind of fever pitch. Like, is he going to rock up? They didn't shove a minister on the news rounds. Like, they're obviously panicked, or all of the ministers are refusing to do the news rounds because they were made to look fucking stupid last week. It felt like it was all building up to something. And then this afternoon, Allegra Stratton resigned. And I was like, is that, like, do they think that's it? Like, is she the scapegoat? Is she the one that's been sacrificed at the altar of Christmas Partygate? Do you think that's it now? Is that going to finish this?
Well, I don't think it's going to finish it, but I think they think it's going to finish it, because it's like in trying to, I mean, I don't know who intended to put out the smear. I don't know who it came from. I'm hearing all kinds of mad rumours, like Cummings put it out and all the parties agreed that he would, that agreed that it would go out. I don't think so. I think there's a disgruntled civil servant, people are thinking, truth siftergate, twistergate and all that kind of stuff. But I think that they probably intended to target one person with a barrage of shit and ended up all getting covered in it, because no one's got clean hands in that party.
Yeah, I think you're right. Davey, what was your reaction when Stratton resigned this afternoon? Did you feel sorry for her?
Absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. First of all, Stratton, I remember that video of Allegra Stratton sat with that poor girl, making her look like an absolute moron because she wanted to make the choice to have a house. And the idea of someone as disconnected from the working class, speaking to someone from the working class about the right to own property or the right to rent property was disgraceful. So I have long nursed a grudge against that woman. But to see this cavalier attitude about something as heinous as throwing a party when we knew that there was a dangerous virus going around that was making people die, and then to laugh about it and make jokes about wine and cheese, and then to go, and it was not socially distanced. She could have knelt down on that doorstep wailing like she'd recently been anesthetized by fucking Zeus himself, and I would have still been like, I don't care. This is nothing to do with anything. Firstly, like you said, she's a sacrificial lamb. It means nothing to me. She was the messenger, and you know the rule: you don't shoot the messenger. But who's the person that created the message? Like, all of this stuff coming out about who involved and who made it and blah blah blah. Irrespective, ultimately, the point that I want to focus on, the point I want to drill down on, the point that I mentioned in a video earlier, is as simple as this. If you are a prime minister and you do not know that 65 of your staff are throwing a forbidden Christmas party at the place where you live, then you are inept and should not be a prime minister. And if you do know that it's happening and lie to the public who installed you, then you do not deserve the platform that you have, and you should not be a prime minister. So however this ends, it ends with Johnson gone, as far as I am concerned. There is no alternative.
Yeah. I think you bang on there, and it's a similar reaction as I've had to so many of his like poor decisions or fuck ups, or indeed like the decisions and fuck ups of his cabinet ministers, where I've genuinely got to this sort of psychological crossroads where I've thought to myself, is he hugely incompetent and he's just allowed this shit to happen? Or the other route is, did he deliberately allow this shit to happen and he's hugely corrupt? So is he incompetent or corrupt? But either way, that is not a leader. He needs to get the fuck out.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, I think he's willfully dangerous, and even if whatever one it is, it still resulted in hundreds of thousands of people dying. And you know, he was a one-trick pony, and he performed it, which was the illusion of getting Brexit done. That was what people voted him in for. He was a carefully constructed fucking sham of a human being. He had the same team behind him that Trump had behind him to construct that fucking mad anti-hero bollocks. He is a person that has performed their one trick badly, and now we're seeing the real effects of what happens when you hire someone to do a job that's been sacked from every other job that he's ever had in his life. Everything he's touched, he's fucked. Literally, he's literally fucked everything. Mistresses, Mayor of London, gave 120 grand of our money to a woman he was bonking in America whilst he was doing that job. Let's not forget. So is it any surprise that he robbed us as we died?
Yeah.
He's not worse than a common crackhead. I think a common crackhead probably has more integrity than Johnson.
Yeah.
Prick.
Yeah. I mean, I found it, like, just to go back to the Stratton thing, like when I saw that she had resigned, I sort of like laughed to myself, and then I kind of stopped myself because I thought, well, like, does that make me, am I being callous by laughing at this, like the shit that this woman is going through? And then I sort of backed out a little bit. I was like, well, no, hang on a second. Like, she doesn't get to stand up there in this very cushy press briefing room that they spaffed, like, what was it, 2.5 million on, and laugh at the sacrifices that other people have made and treat people with contempt while people's like mums and dads and grandmas fucking died alone. She doesn't get to scoff at that shit. And then when she goes through some shit, I'm supposed to be like, oh, well, I can't laugh at her. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I agree. Laugh away.
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute about Starmer. Let's move on slightly. So Starmer came away today from PMQs, I think, looking solid as fuck. On the attack, focused, compassionate. But for those of us hoping to oust the Tories, is this a sign that Starmer has kind of like found his voice? Because that's where I'm sort of hoping, but like, or is it just a sign that this is a really like visceral scandal that people feel genuinely upset about, and so it's actually quite easy for him to maul Johnson? I
think when it comes down to it, there's a lot of people that want to jump the rush, and I just don't want to, like, I've tried really hard, as I've been saying recently, to sort of stay on the good side of as many people as I can, because ultimately I think we need a conglomerate to achieve our goal, which is get the Tories out. When it comes down to Starmer, there's so many people that are like, oh, he should have called for his resignation. It's not good enough to ask for an apology. And then, like, it just bears repeating. Number one, the man was a lawyer. And number two, it's commonsensical. You say to someone, did you do that? And they go, I'm sorry. That is the admission of guilt that allows you to go, that is not good enough. This isn't about this is not about an apology, because who wants an apology for this? No amount of words, nothing can make up for the betrayal that every single decent human being feels from this. This is about laying the groundwork to box him in. Yes, I am sorry for what has happened. Right. Did you know about it? Because if you knew about it, then you've lied. If you didn't know about it, you're incompetent. You must go. Well done. I will say, as a side, well done Free and Blackford for calling him out. But I understand what Starmer's doing, and I think that any criticism of him for not suddenly reacting in the way that people want him to, I understand. But I also understand how the game of politics is played in this way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree. I think there's a measured, consultative tone that Starmer strikes very well, and he comes off looking like he's not hysterical, he's not buying into the frenzy, and I think that's kind of the sort of, dare I say, prime ministerial, sort of statesman-esque vibe that you need in a world leader, Tan,
the best example. The best example of that I saw was a couple of days after the MP was murdered, and Starmer did the whole, Johnson was like, yeah, this party, blah, blah, blah. And Starmer was like, really? After what's happened, this is the tone you want to take? And that, like, I was like, you know me, I'm a harsher critic of Starmer than some people that we know, but I was like, yes, that was the way to do it. So that's what I think.
Yeah. Tan, how did you think he performed today?
Well, he gets shit for everything, doesn't he? Human rights lawyers, they're bastards, aren't they? I mean, who would want a human rights lawyer running the country?
Monsters.
Working pro bono, avoiding the death penalty in other countries, did that all. That's how he got his knighthood, by the way, guys. But
well, I hope he takes a long, hard look at himself.
He needs to take a good hard look at himself, definitely. But I think he smashed it. I mean, I think, again, like Davey said, he's building a case. I think, I'm getting an understanding of what Starmer was doing. I was running on pure faith for a bit, thinking, what the fuck is his game? What's he playing at? But yeah, I think he's building a case against Johnson. But he's working with jelly. I mean, how do you get that? I mean, what people need to realise is we're living in a post-truth state. The media has like an unprecedented amount of control over people's minds, as has been proven. A lot of damage has been done to the Labour Party from the very end of like Blair's reign, when he lost his head. Corbyn made a few mistakes, ultimately not a bad guy, but he was pretty smeared. And then like Starmer's inherited an absolute fucking shit show, and he's only been able to actually start to try to turn it around now that the whole national crisis, the phase of national crisis has been removed. So he's made inroads, him and his party. He's got a great party, a great cabinet, have only just started being able to make inroads now. But again, it's like trying to handle someone that's just made of pure custard. How do you go up against someone that has put like this spell over the entire population? And I think that the reason he didn't call for Johnson's resignation is because that could possibly spark a general election. And I don't know if Labour's ready for a general election. And we're going to have to literally take it day by day after Johnson goes to discover whether or not there will be that increase in the polls when someone new comes in, or whether or not they're going to flatline and the damage has been done. I don't know, but it's hard to predict. But I'm hearing a lot of people that previously voted Tory going, this isn't a Tory party that I know. And I was like, I just think, well, you've always been a bunch of C units. It doesn't really, but it's so bad that even Tory voters think it's bad. So it must be fucking bad.
Yeah.
So himself, I've got a lot of respect for the man. I think he's doing well. There's a lot of things he's done that I don't agree with, but he's doing what he needs to do to win. And ultimately, our goal is winning. So
yeah,
fair play to the lad.
Yeah. It sort of goes back to what Davey was saying earlier. Like when people say, "Oh, I can't believe that they've behaved this way," and like people like you, me, and Davey, and thousands or millions of others will look at them like, where have you been? Like, we've been saying this shit fucking years. Like they've been cunts. What? Like, I will drop the C-bomb, by the way.
Someone had to.
Yeah, they're cunts. Let's all say it.
Yeah.
Cunts.
So that brings me on to my next question. We'll start with you, Davey. Where do you think this is headed? Is it going to fizzle away in the second or third or fourth week in the same way that the second jobs debacle seems to have? I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say that these things fizzle away so much as they get kind of eclipsed by whatever the new fucking scandal is. But is that Boris Johnson's calculation, do you think, that by setting up an inquiry, it's just kicked down the road and then we all kind of forget about it?
I expect as much. I think the problem is, I just feel like I don't think that it was necessarily intentional, but I feel like there's been so much stuff, and I went into a lot of detail on this when I was writing today. Just this endless fight. We've been in this fight for so long, and it obviously goes longer than 2016, but 2016 came and Brexit, and are you a countryman or are you one of them EU lovers? And it was like, I love my country, but I also think the EU is great, and I want to be able to move there and have the rights, and like having the oversight of the EU would be great right now. I'm just saying, but like when it comes down to it, we have this massive fight that's still ongoing now. Was it the right decision? Was it the wrong decision? And all of that. Then there was now this I do think was planned. This just expertly dropped culture war, and take your pick. Is it the racism? Is it the transphobia? Is it the gays have got enough rights now and need to stop booing? Is it the is it women? Like, you know, like, because conversely, and then all the stuff that's happening with like essentially rape culture in England, there's like everything. Like, it's just this endless recycling of these woke people telling us how to live and telling us what to do and trying to invade our bathrooms and stop us saying the word women, and it's chest feeding now. And I'm like, all we do is fight. All we do all the time is fight. And I know that I'm involved in that. I'm a massive trans ally and I stand with women. And I think that BLM is the most important thing that's probably happened in my entire lifetime. So, of course, they're all necessary fights. But they are diversions from what is happening behind the scenes, which is a government just bit by bit, just taking more and taking more and taking more. And we're too busy looking over here going, that's ridiculous. They're humans and you can't hate them, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the government's over here going, let's just criminalize people coming from overseas and you helping them and stuff. And it has this knock-on effect of we just never get anywhere, because whilst we're trying to explain to people that we're not trying to like censor you, the government sneaking along and doing stuff that we don't want in the background. It's just exhausting.
So you mean like to you the culture war is this distraction, and we all get kind of drunk on statues and poppies and the proms and all of that shit, and meanwhile in the background they're like you know,
absolutely. Like, look at like a report came out that was heavily doctored that had referenced loads of like supposed academics saying there's no racism in this country, and then a few days later loads of academics were like, my name's on there and I didn't even go to Downing Street to talk about this, what? And nothing was made out of that. But there's a report that just had, like, that's so much fuel for a fire. All of the people that think that racism is ridiculous and there's no such thing can throw that back in people of colour's faces, and people of colour have to spend all of their energy again explaining, this is what my life is like. You don't get to tell me that I don't experience this. So they're distracted away, and the government sits there going, well, I didn't see any racism. I mean, look, she's a person of colour and she agrees. Like, forgetting, of course, that she's privileged as fuck, brought up in a rich home, never had to deal with anyone that would stand against her. And I mean, I'm not being funny, but would you ever say anything to Priti Patel? Because she looks like she'd just unhinge her jaw. But,
yeah,
you know, it's the same as, like, look at it as simple as what's going on now. It's awful that that is being used as fuel for a bonfire. But while the big bonfire is going on and we're all trying to say, hey, racism is bad, in the corner, the Tories are going, so if we pass this legislation that says that this means this, and we just have no idea it's happening because we're too busy trying to deal with the honking great set of people on Twitter going, oh, all lives matter, you know?
But don't you think, like, so I suppose in that paradigm, Christmas Partygate would again be a sort of distraction. Meanwhile, they're rushing through the, what's that? Oh, fuck me.
The Borders Bill.
Yeah, yeah. And Priti Patel has added, did I read that she's added like 10 new clauses to the police and crime bill? Is that the name of it?
Yes.
So while we're all arguing about whether or not a party happened.
It's fine if you block a road. Yeah.
So absolutely. But I've seen a lot of that stuff, and it strikes me as kind of a bit. I'm not saying your read on this is in this territory, but there's a lot of Twitter that seems to be going, oh, this Christmas party stuff, it's all a big dead cat. You know, there's something else going on in the background. They just want us talking about the Christmas. I don't credit Boris Johnson's administration with that much intelligence and like, they're not playing chess, they're playing fucking buckaroo. They're like and badly. They're fucking it up. Tan, where do you think this is headed in the next sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks?
That's a nice, not broad question. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, like, just to hone in, can I just quickly hone in on what Davey was saying? Because there's a point to be made about this sham of patriotism, right? The people, they're using nationalism as a front because 5,000 members of kind of racist parties joined the Tories in the 2019 election because they related to them. So they're constantly trying to keep them on board. In terms of it being a dead cat, I don't know yet. I don't think they need dead cats because, to be fair, it's just when they get found out for the terrible fucking shit they're doing, and when it's just when it comes out, it comes out. Whether or not there's a brave journalist or a whistleblower here or there that's willing to actually speak out against them, usually people with nothing to lose in the situation. But it's hard to tell, because literally you don't know from one day to the next what they're going to do next. They've been putting through this legislation for, what is it, the best part of 6 months now, 4 months, 5 months. Whilst kind of, as Davey was saying, promoting that kind of othering behaviour, and also disgustingly using people of colour to front those policies, so people can go, oh, it's not racist because, whereas, you know, assuming that most people don't talk to people of colour who say no, that's like basically internalised racism, what they're doing. Again, not my opinion, I take that from opinions of people that I know. And, you know, when we've got a government that are willing to let refugees drown in the sea, and according to the people, I don't think they expected to survive, ignored Mayday calls. It's at the point where, well, all right then, pretty, take away our right to protest, we'll fucking riot then.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready. And people I know that wouldn't normally riot are you know, they're ready to do it. You know,
about 3 or 4 times every week, Davey, I think back to your tweet that I think you've got pinned on your profile. That's like, every day I wonder why we aren't rioting.
Yep. I find it. I still have that tweet pinned, and I still think it's a mistake, because literally, without fail, every single week, I will piss off a gammon, and they'll go on my page, and then they'll be like, "No, we're not rioting because you're weak and spindly," and I'm like, "Well, at least I can run away from the popo, you fat sack of shit."
Do you know what, we've had a couple of weeks of it. You know, I'd happily take one of them on. I reckon I could outrun them, most of them. So yeah, try me, dickhead. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the dead cat angle. I've not really thought about this before, but I suppose the problem with dead catism, if you can call it that, is that you never actually get. Like, people are then rarely held to account. You never sort of stop and go, this is wrong, so now we're going to talk about it and you're going to face up to your responsibilities and so on. Because whatever the crime is, or the fuck up, or the lie, that same person is going to go, whoa, what's the real story though? You know, like, Boris Johnson could literally slit the throats of his entire cabinet, and somebody out there would be on Twitter going like, it's just a distraction.
Or they'd blame Starmer for it. They'd be like, oh, why didn't Starmer stop him slitting all their throats? They're just like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
If it was Dan Hodges reporting on it, he'd be like, what does this say about Labour?
Why aren't Labour enterprising like the Tories are willing to slit the throats of the
Dan
dissenters?
fucking Hodges, man. He'd probably be like, yeah, why isn't this benefiting Labour, whilst counting his fucking backhands from Johnson?
I mean, guys, I'm not being funny, but I can't tell you anything Dan Hodges says, because he blocked me because he's a snowflake, aren't you, Dan?
I'm surprised he hasn't blocked me yet. I'm angling for it. I can't believe Laura Kunzberg and Michael Fabricant hasn't, because I've rinsed the shit out of Fabricant.
Oh,
so I'd have to look at his mad fucking Chewbacca hairpiece every day.
Every day I made a joke about him.
He's such a weird guy. Like I can't figure him out. Yeah, like if he was a character in a political drama or a political comedy even, you would send it back to the scriptwriter. You would be like, nah, this is too, like, it's like there would never be a guy like that wearing that wig in the Houses of Parliament. Just rewrite it, you know, make it more believable.
He looks like a mad waxwork of Johnson.
The thing is, like, he's been wearing that wig for a really long time, but I've decided I've got a headcanon about him, right? Which is that he tries to make himself look as much like the current Prime Minister as possible, which is why he's got that wig. So say Johnson got ousted tomorrow and, like, by some miracle Priti Patel stepped in, he'd come into Houses of Parliament with a really long black wig.
Yeah.
He probably would, man. Or if Sunak got in, he'd come in dressed as a Thunderbird, because that's what Sunak looks like, an evil Thunderbird in my view. But
the only real part is his hand pressing the button for the nukes.
Yeah, or like a kind of like an evil Miliband. Like, he got diverted out of the doors that are like evil and went into the Tory party. Whereas the Milibands can do no wrong in my view. I love Ed. Big up yourself, Ed. Doubt he's watching, but
you never know.
Love you, Ed.
Do you think
Ed's a legend, man.
Do you think David Miliband will ever come back and save us?
No, I think he's doing all right. I think he's doing all right not being involved in this shit show, to be fair. Why would he want to come back to this fucking monstrosity? Live it up in America. They've got Biden now, you know, they've got rid of Trump for now. So good luck. If I could get the country, I would.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's like, God, if I could just like uproot my family and fuck off. I really, like, I know that doesn't sound, but it's not winning any arguments that Remainers are not particularly patriotic, is it? But I'm like...
It's not patriotism, though. It's a sham of patriotism. Like, this is the thing. It's like, you can wave flags around all you want. You can, you know, you can try and crack down on people that you don't see as distinctly British. You can try and take over the programming and make it distinctly British. But the bottom line is, you lied to the Queen to illegally prorogue Parliament. You made your figurehead that you're all supposed to, I don't know, bow to, sit alone at her husband's funeral in her 90s, whilst you guys all lived it up on the Moe and the GAC in the Houses of Parliament. Yeah. We're patriots. We're the people that care about the good people in this country, that won't let like criminality and fuckwits run the country. We're the patriots, whereas they're just like garden variety nationalists that don't have any identity, so wrap it up in a flag. Yeah, just fucking bellends.
That's such an important thing. Sorry to interrupt there. It's such an important thing to articulate the differences in the understanding of what patriotism is, because like I talk a lot in my TikToks and Twitter and stuff about how it's symbolism over substance, and where I align with the sort of, I don't know, the Remain cause or the Rejoin cause or whatever it is this week. I see it as like the substance, like the logic there is that this makes sense to me, for us, for the greater good. And then I look over at the sort of like the Brexity kind of nationalist side of things, and I'm like, it's just symbolism. It's just obsessing over fucking poppies and flags. And it's not about like winning rights or freedoms or hard fought freedoms or any of the things that actually truly make Britain great and a place to be proud of. It's just this weird sort of fetishization of the Union Jack, like you say, like, you know, wrapping yourself in a Union Jack, fucking having a wank about it, and then saying, yeah, we're Britain, we're the greatest. You know, that's not patriotism. That's just fucking, I don't even know what that is. Is that nationalism?
Those guys at the White Lives Matter protests, otherwise known as sausage fests, where they were doing the Sieg Heil in front of the War Memorial. Yeah. What I'd like is for a World War soldier to come back and just deal with those fuckers, because that's the opposite of patriotism. Yeah. People, our men, our people died to defend us in one of the most horrific wars ever, and now you're wanting to revert back to that, and you're daring to do that gesture on a war memorial. You fucking mental. If I'd been there, I'd have probably got arrested. I wouldn't be able to sit by and watch that happen.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm full of rage. I'm raging out like Hulk.
Have you got yourself a G&T? Have you got yourself a drink there, Tan?
No. Where's Davey gone?
Where are you, Davey?
Davey's fucked up. Have we lost Davey?
Where are you, Davey?
His signal's gone bad. Rejoin. He's WhatsApping me going, what happened?
This is the point in the podcast, certainly the video podcast, where I should talk about the quality of the stream tonight. So I'm having some troubles with bandwidth, and it's coming through fine, I think, audio wise, but it's affecting the size of Tan and Davey's window. And so I keep having to sort of resize the window that they're talking, like they both come through on the same window on the screen. And I'm like, oh God, this is so embarrassing. So if you are watching on the live stream, I apologize for that. And if you are listening on the audio, then you won't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So that's good. Has Davey rejoined?
Well, yeah. Well, is Davey incoming? I hope he is. What picture have you got behind you, Davey?
Picture? Oh, this is me and my girlfriend here.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
You've got a nice chefalera by in the background as well. Or is it some kind of beanie plant? I don't know what it is.
Do you know what it is? An avocado tree. 2 of them.
This is why people can't afford fucking houses. All these people buying avocado trees.
Yeah, I hadn't even made the connection. Like, the only reason that they're here is because I thought it'd be a fun thing to do with my son. Like, look, I'll show you that if you take this out of here and, you know, we treat it and we put it in this for 2 weeks and then we sort it and then we put it in a thing and it'll grow and it'll be a mate. Like, it's a cool thing for a 4-year-old at that time to learn. And actually what happened was, you know, predictably, my girlfriend was like, what the fuck are those things? I was like, they're avocado trees. And she's like, well, can you just take them out to your weird man cave then or something? I'm like, all right.
Davey's back in the room. I mean, my internet's been proper shit, so I don't know if it's yours, Davey.
I have no idea, but it was really funny because Ed was like, it's this weird mix of... And I was like...
Oh,
hello.
Shit. I left you hanging today.
Take away the...
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, look at Aid. He's like a consummate professional. We're just sitting there, pissed on his gin, going, "Yeah, well, what happened will happen."
Look, this is the one of the optics of running your own podcast, doing it sort of independent. Firstly, you get to say to people, I've done this with no industry backing," which actually means I'm just doing this on a budget. But it also means I can be unprofessional and not back a few beers. You couldn't do this in a BBC studio.
Yeah. What did I miss, guys? What did I miss?
Me and Aid talking about me trying to talk about chef Valera's, and then us talking about the fact that avocado trees are the reason why you've gone again, Davey. You're freezing like a bastard.
That would be.
Am I freezing like a bastard?
That would be you.
Are we all freezing? Oh no!
It's your turn.
After you were bragging about your Wi-Fi strength, Tan.
I'm not bragging about my Wi-Fi strength. It's shit. I'm like that far from the router. It's shit.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
You don't care. Don't want me.
Let's do one more question and then we'll wrap up. In fact, maybe we could take a couple of questions from the live chat because there's a few people in there. So if you have a question for myself, Tan, or Davey, then by all means do pop it into the chat. And I will. I'll pose this question.
Don't out the nice ones, eh? Don't make it like, oh, you want a bunch of lefty cuts.
Gammon417 says, "Why are you all such lefty woke snowflakes?"
Yeah.
Our country matters. Oh, shit.
Here's my question, right? And then we'll take one from the floor after that.
Take one from the tea.
Yeah. Right. If you look at Allegra Stratton's cancellation, you know, she's been cancelled. Let's say it how it is. If you look at the cancellation of Allegra Stratton, where do you think she's going to end up next? Because there's this sort of feeling now like, oh, you know, she's lost her job, she was fired, and for good reason, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that should be the end of her. But guarantee you, she'll be in the Spectator or the Mail or the Express or something, won't she? Like, in a few weeks. Where do you think she's going to end up?
Well, that's cancellation. That's cancellation in a nutshell. I'm so cancelled. Read my story on pages 3, 4, 5 of the Daily Mail, 4 of the Guardian, 6 of the Telegraph, 2 of the Daily Star. And, by the way, my husband works for the Spectator, so expect a monthly column. That's cancellation. That's cancellation in a nutshell. So where will she end up? Probably more fucking well off than she would have done if she'd have stayed working for Boris Johnson as his human footstool.
So angry.
What the fuck do you expect from us, eh? Do you know us?
Yeah, no, the rage is real. These two, they tweet the tweet, but they walk the walk.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as Davey was saying, I mean, she's not going to face any real fucking well consequences, is she? It's not like she's going to end up working in Poundland or Mackie D's. She's as privileged as fuck. She's going to walk in to a job, but it's quite odd because normally it's people that work for the Daily Mail ending up in the House of Commons as opposed to the other way round. So yeah, she'll be all right. They're always all right. They always land on their feet because they don't face any real punitive consequences of their actions.
Yeah,
like Johnson and that. Like what they're gonna like Patterson. He'll resign. He'll get a payoff. He won't resign anyway. It's always pre-written for them. He'll get made to leave. He will get a cushy pension. He'll get a payoff. He'll continue working for his offshore companies. They don't face real consequences. There's no law in place. If a conflict of interest like that happened in the workplace and your workplace took you to court, you get fucked for it. you could lose your career. You could end up homeless. They're never going to face real consequences for their behaviour. They won't live like people, will they? You know?
Yeah, I suppose there's an argument to be made there. There's a case to be made that if you did introduce legal, like punitive or custodial punishments to people in politics for misbehaving, that you might go down an ugly road into that kind of, you know, banana republic territory where somebody is in power, you don't want them in power, you dig up everything that you can on them and prosecute them and get them jailed, which I'm not 100% comfortable with. But then I also can't really resolve this feeling of like, I don't want people jailed that are in politics, but also there has to be some fucking consequence. Like, it can't be a situation where somebody like Allegra Stratton it resigns off her own accord, and Boris Johnson says, oh, I'll look into the party that happened in my own house, and then that's it, like the news cycle moves on and everyone's just supposed to fucking lay down and accept that. Well, no, I want to see some sort of investigation. How many parties were there? Who organised them? Who signed off on them? You know, like, I want there to be a thorough, credible investigation that gets to the bottom of it, and for someone to have to sit somewhere and explain why they did it, you know, why they thought they could get away with it. I want there to be consequences, but I don't know if I'm fully at ease with prosecuting politicians. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I don't understand why the fuck you don't think that they should face any form of jail time for what would be something that would be sackable for anyone else. Like, this is the thing, like, I'm going to have a think about you, Aid. Why don't you want them in jail? Because anyone else that committed corporate manslaughter,
oh yeah,
I mean, Preston's jailed its bankers.
I'm talking about like arranging party, like breaking the rules. Like, I think they should be.
Yeah, they should. That would be a deterrent. I mean, no, you know, if there's not a deterrent, people will commit crimes freely. There's no deterrent. They know they're not going to face any real time consequences. They come from elite backgrounds. The majority of Tory MPs do. Yeah. I'm not going to fall into that whole. They're all the same, because they're not. Labour MPs are generally more decent human beings from more kind of like working class, middle class backgrounds. I mean, they don't. What will be the deterrent for them then? What there won't be, will there? They'll just keep doing it.
Well, it depends on the severity of the crime for me. Like, if they murdered someone, obviously they would get a custodial sentence. If they raped somebody, they would get a custodial sentence. You would hope. Although sometimes
they don't know, do they? Look at Rob. Look at Rob, like the guy that kept his job after sexually assaulting a man.
Rob Roberts, yeah. Rob Roberts had a whole month out of Parliament, and then he's back.
And they bent the rules to make sure a sexual predator remained in his job, but they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't bend the rules so that Owen Paterson faced scrutiny for what he did. There's just a big news club of protectionism, and it's sickening.
My fear is that if you opened up is the floodgates the right phrase? I don't know. I just have this horrible. I agree. Like, but it depends on the severity of the crime. Like, if it's something like they misused public funds, I think they should be kicked out of their job, and that should be the consequence. If there's a sign that they lied about something and then covered it up, I think they should be ejected from their party and lose their seat and so on. But I think prosecuting people out of office, I just think, even if it was perfectly, but like totally understandable right now for this person, he's a monster, she's a monster, let's eject them and prosecute them and send them down. I just have this uneasy feeling that it would set a precedent that like 4 years or 7 years or 10 years down the line, the tables would turn and they would start prosecuting people for illegitimate reasons and digging up cases and like constructing legal problems around people just to get them out of the picture, you know?
Here's the thing.
Well, they should. Sorry, Davey, you carry on, because I've had enough.
The problem that you've got is that we all, and I think we all in this call, and so many people in this country, still believe in good old fashioned politics. Now, don't get me wrong. There's been some cunty MPs out there throughout the years, obviously, but you could still respect them as being honest. And if they weren't honest, they might have bent the truth, but it was understood it was understood as an ironclad thing. If you lied at the dispatch box, your career was over.
Right, yeah.
And that's gone. That kind of politics is dead because of Boris Johnson, specifically in this country. Obviously, we had Trumpism over in America. That completely eroded like any normal American's trust in American politics and the disclosure of it. But when it comes down to this, I do understand where you're coming from, Ed. Yes, I could see that a system that does that could potentially be misused. But what we have now isn't working. And I like smarter people than me are going to have to come up with the answer because I don't know. I know what you mean. I do understand because, you know, sometimes people have to do unscrupulous things. As shit and unsavory as that is, let's be honest, we're not dumb in this group. We know that that happens sometimes. But ultimately, they are not facing consequences for what they've done. And we're talking everything from authoritarian law dispensing, we're talking about lobbying, we're talking about taking away our actual freedoms and democratic rights. We're talking about lying, having affairs in important jobs, using public funds to hire people, like on and on and on and on and on. And I could list millions of things, but ultimately the old system is dead and we need to find a new one that works.
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to something I heard in a Tupac Shakur interview actually once, where they were saying, I know it's a bit of a sort of rant. Say what?
You're so gangster.
No one's ever actually said that before, Mike.
I understand that's probably the
but I remember listening to this interview with him, and he was saying, like, I think somebody had asked him why African Americans were rioting or protesting or something, right? And he said, well, it's like this, you know, you start off when there's a social justice issue, you start off knocking on the door and you ask for some help, and then they don't answer the door, and then after 2 weeks you start banging on the door and they still don't want to help, and you've asked nicely, and then you've raised your voice, and then and eventually you're going to break the fucking door down to get in there to get the food to feed your family. And I suppose in a very sort of similar way, if slightly a clumsy parallel to draw, is that where people don't feel they're being heard, like there are no consequences for these people. They get asked to resign, politely asked to resign. They step down from their ministerial role, and then they go back to being a constituency MP for fucking what, like 6 months? Hancock's been back doing constituency work, and he's already on the fucking like morning news shows trying to get back in there, you know. So there's no consequence. They just take a step back and then they take a step forward again. And I suppose in the absence of having any real world repercussions, that knock on the door is becoming a sort of banging on the door, like, no, we want to see them jailed, we want to see them prosecuted. But what if there were real world consequences? What if somebody did something like Hancock did and he was banned from public office eternally? Would that suffice for you, or would you want to see him prosecuted?
I want to see him prosecuted because the other things that you mentioned are not consequences. He's still got a job. He's still able to profit from his position. So no, like I don't.
What I'm saying is, like, in a situation where he were ejected from public office and he wasn't allowed to get back into public office, would that be enough of a consequence for you? Or would you?
Well, I don't know though. No, I don't think it would. No, I mean, if he's broken the law, he did break the law, but he also won the war on COVID, didn't he? So
he's such a hero.
You know, such a hero, man. You know.
Let's move to one of the questions on the chat. Let me see if I can find one. So, question: Steve Bannon has been.
Oh, you lefty workers.
Steve Bannon has been subpoenaed by Congress. Do you think he'll spill some beans about Brexit and his history with the UK, Boris, Farage, and Russia? That's from V Nerdbooks. Do we think Steve Bannon, having been subpoenaed by Congress, do we think he'll spill the beans on Brexit? Did I? You looked
I don't know.
No.
I don't really give a fuck, really.
No, I don't. No. Steve Bannon is well paid to do what he does, and he knows where his P's and his Q's are, and he knows that if he opens his mouth, the game is up. Why would he ever open his mouth? If he opens his mouth about Russia, if he opens his mouth about Brexit, he opens his mouth about Trump, it's over for him. If he still maintains...
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Bandwidth problem. The Russians will mete out some real world consequences to him. And again, like as you mentioned about patriotism, Johnson is well controlled by the Russians. There's that rumor about the violinist and all that crap. This government are not only killing us, lying to us, laughing at us, but they're also national security risks. So yeah, sorry, Davey.
No, it's fine, don't worry. I will say as well, because we were talking about nationalism, like, I think it's really funny because the debate to me is as simple as this. What's more important, waving a flag and shouting, I love Britain, or saying our government is not doing things right for us and we need to change and we need to protest and we need to put in the work and we need to find the right people and we need to install them and we need to not stop until that changes? Because I think I know what is patriotism in those two things. And it's sad that this country seems to think that waving a flag is the same thing as doing the hard stuff.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I think it sort of goes back to a topic that we've touched on, I think, in one of your respective appearances on here, where we talked about how, people just like a simple story, don't they? They just like a good and an evil story. Like and patriotism kind of offers them that in a really diluted base level way. They're like, yeah, we're great and the EU are evil, or immigrants are evil and us Brits are amazing. And it takes real character, I think, to sit somebody like that down and say, no, like, this, it's more complex than that. You need to understand the nuances, because if you do try to embark on a conversation like that with a really gammony Brexity type, you end up in a situation where they just get really angry at you,
Yeah. And I think it's just trying to get that message across to them of like, I understand like the root cause. I understand that you want to like, love your country and blah, blah, blah. But what do you actually do to prove it? It's all words. It's all, what's the phrase? It's all smoke and mirrors. Like, because it's so easy to go, I'm a Brit and I love Britain. But why? What do you love about it? What's so great about Britain? Being British. Why? Why is being British so great? Ultimately, I think that I overthink everything. And I think that a lot of rows that are going on at the moment are far too complicated. Like, my nationality is where I was given birth to. And if my mum had gone on holiday and given birth to me in France, I'd be French. My nationality would be France. And so it means nothing to me, really. Like, what matters to me is people. And I grew up believing, rightly or wrongly, the stuff where people said, we're full of grit and we're strong and we're powerful and we work together and we care about each other. And COVID hit. And so many British people let me down and showed me that they don't care. They don't care about me. They don't care about protecting my family. They don't care about protecting their own family. It's all about, what can I do for me? And if it's not for me, then I'm not going to do it. And that's very disappointing, because I thought that we would pull together during this, and it was very sad to see people let me down that way.
Yeah, I think it's saddening, because we're sort of raised in this country to believe that there are such a thing as like British values of like honesty, decency, trust, and then as you get older, you realise actually it's quite fucking rare,
Yeah, it's really sad. I don't know. I just find it frightening that people are so brazenly misled over. I thought that was going to happen. That people are so brazenly misled over what it is, and it comes back to all of this stuff that we're talking about. Patriotism for me was doing the hard stuff. Like, I've been open about this, and I'll talk about it now. Like, my mum died 3 days before the first lockdown. And I desperately needed to see my family, because we'd all been there for days. We'd watched her die slowly in front of us. It was awful. It's the worst thing I've ever been through, and hopefully the worst thing I'll ever go through. And for the greater good of everybody around me, whether I knew them or whether I didn't, we all stayed away from each other and we did the hard thing. And I understand that other people had different situations that, impacted on them differently. But I did that because I cared about the people that I share this goddamn island with. And it's sad that people couldn't do even the barest minimum of that. And the other thing is, people will weaponize deaths due to like people will take their own lives because they're so isolated, or people will die because of the vaccine, and people get gleeful about it. And ultimately, it doesn't matter whether it's because of coronavirus or because of suicide or because of vaccines or poverty. people have died in this pandemic, and the people that were supposed to be in charge and make sure that we were safe, that make sure that we were healthy, happy, protected as best as possible in a terrible situation, have completely let us down. And there's no arguing that.
No, that's true, and it's such a huge like break of trust, and that's the thing that sort of gets lost sight of, I think. So in some of the oh, she's back. She's
Hey.
oh, yeah.
Fucking there. It was so confusing. Oh,
I was starting to
that.
get like the paranoia. I was like, maybe I really pissed her off? Like,
Tan, go on Twitter afterwards, and Tan's like, "Aid is cancelled."
yeah. Welcome back. Yeah, nice to see you again.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that it's getting lost of sight of in some quarters, is people are saying stuff like, oh, it's just a Christmas party, or it's just, it's just a few people having a drink. Like, most people probably broke the rules if they're really honest about it last year. And I'm like, it's not fucking about that. It's about, they wrote the rules. They have to hold themselves to such a high standard. And it wasn't just like a little slip up. It was three times, I think we're being told now, that it happened. And now we're in a situation where even, I think the Met, just before we started doing this, the Met have confirmed that they will not be investigating the breach of the coronavirus laws last year. Surprise, surprise. And it's just this whole, like, across the board, across the police, across the government, across the, like, journalist landscape. It's just, people feel so let down and broken. I don't know. I struggle to find the adjectives really to describe it. We are sort of out of time now. I'm sorry to get you back again just to say goodbye, Tan.
All right, dickhead.
Yeah, soz. But thank you both for coming on. It's been really fun. And yeah, by all means, if you're not already following DavieMoo and Supertanskiii, then please do seek them out on Twitter. I think DavieMoo and Supertanskiii are working on a podcast of your own, are you not?
We are indeed.
Awesome. So keep everyone posted on that, and yeah, everyone sub to that once it goes live. I'll be back again this Friday night with a new guest. I don't think it's going to be anything political on Friday. I'm not sure yet. Truth be told, haven't found a fucking guest yet, so we'll see. And rest assured that when it's one guest on, not that a workman blames his tools and all that shit, but when it's one guest on, then flipping me off. When it's only like one guest on, I don't have to like move the windows around all the time.
Sorry, Aid. Sorry that you had to move the windows around for us.
I worry that I'm looking unprofessional and shit. But
you're cool, man. You're all right. I mean,
I don't know
cool? I don't know what you're talking about with the kind of, in the figurative sense.
You said I was gangster a minute ago. I'm taking that to the bank.
Hefting some double glazing across the screen. I don't think it's quite that complicated.
No. Right, cool. Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in. And yeah, I'll be back on Friday night. Definitely go follow DavieMoo and Supertanskiii, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers. Bye.